Hello, and welcome to another episode of Time Capsule Modern Genealogy, Legacy, and AI, the podcast where we explore how to preserve your family's history, protect your research, and use today's technology, including artificial intelligence, to ensure your legacy is never lost. I'm Barbara Beauregard, professional genealogist, DNA researcher, author, educator, and founder of AncestrySeeking.com. Let me ask you a question. If something unexpected happened to you tomorrow, would your family know where your genealogy research is? Would they know how to access your computer? Would they know which family tree is the correct one? Would they know what you've already proven and what still needs to be researched? Or would decades of work become nothing more than a collection of files that no one knows how to interpret? Those aren't easy questions to think about. Most of us would rather focus on discovering another ancestor, solving another mystery, or organizing one more photograph than think about what happens to all of our work after we're gone. But here's the reality. Every year, priceless family history is lost. Not because someone didn't care, but because no one planned for what would happen next. Today's episode isn't about death, it's about legacy. It's about making sure the stories you've worked so hard to uncover don't disappear with you. So grab your favorite beverage, settle in, and let's talk about one of the most important genealogy projects you may ever undertake. Several years ago, I received a phone call that has stayed with me ever since. A woman had recently lost her husband. He wasn't a professional genealogist. He was simply someone who loved researching his family history. For more than 30 years, genealogy had been his passion. He had collected photographs, scanned documents, military records, family letters, old newspapers, census records. He had traveled to cemeteries, visited courthouses, interviewed relatives, filled filing cabinets, built family trees, and like many of us, he always assumed there would be more time. After he passed away, his wife called me with a simple question. Barbara, where do I begin? She wasn't asking how to research. She wanted to know how to understand what he had already done. She didn't know his passwords. She didn't know which genealogy program he used. She didn't know which online accounts contained his research. She found notebooks full of abbreviations she didn't understand. Folders labeled with names she'd never heard before. USB drives, external hard drives, boxes of photographs, stacks of papers. There was information everywhere, but there was no roadmap. Imagine spending 30 years assembling a 1,000-piece puzzle and leaving without telling anyone how the pieces fit together. That phone call changed the way I thought about genealogy forever because I realized something. Most genealogists spend years preserving the lives of people who died a century ago, while making no plan to preserve their own work. Think about what you've accomplished. You've searched countless records. You've spent evenings scrolling through census pages. You've celebrated finally finding that elusive marriage record. You've written stories, scanned photographs, labeled images. Maybe you've taken DNA tests, built multiple online trees, organized binders, created digital folders. Some of you have spent decades building your research, thousands of hours, thousands of dollars, thousands of discoveries. But here's the uncomfortable question. If someone sat down at your computer today, could they continue your work, or would they spend months simply trying to figure out where everything is? For many families, the answer is no. Not because the researcher was disorganized, but because genealogy is deeply personal. We know what our abbreviations mean. We know why one document is important and another isn't. We know why we rejected one census record and accepted another. We know which DNA matches matter. We know where the brick walls are. Our family doesn't. Over the years, I've heard story after story. A researcher kept everything on one computer. The hard drive failed. There were no backups. Years of work vanished overnight. Another researcher carefully organized everything inside genealogy software. No one knew the password. No one even knew what software had been used. The subscription expired. The files couldn't be opened. I've met families who inherited dozens of binders, beautifully organized, color-coded, labeled, but there wasn't a single page explaining how everything connected. There were pedigree charts, research notes, copies of documents, photographs, but no overview, no guide, no explanation. To the researcher, it made perfect sense. To everyone else, it was overwhelming. Sometimes the family quietly boxes everything up. Sometimes it goes into an attic. Sometimes it's donated. Sometimes it's thrown away because no one realizes what it contains. That isn't because the family doesn't care. It's because they simply don't know what they're looking at. When we talk about preserving our genealogy, our minds immediately go to the worst case scenario. But that's not the only reason to prepare. What if you're suddenly hospitalized? What if you need rehabilitation after surgery? What if your eyesight changes? What if arthritis makes typing difficult? What if memory loss begins to affect your work? What if you're simply unable to continue researching for several months? Life changes, sometimes unexpectedly. Planning ahead isn't pessimistic, it's practical. The same way we create wills, organize financial records, or prepare emergency contacts, our genealogy deserves a plan too, because our research represents something far greater than ourselves. It represents generations of people whose stories were almost forgotten. Today's genealogists are creating more information than any generation before us. Think about everything you probably have: digital photographs, scanned documents, DNA results, cloud storage, email accounts, online family trees, research logs, downloaded books, subscriptions to genealogy websites, videos, audio recordings, interview transcripts, perhaps even AI-generated research summaries. The amount of information is staggering, but all of that information is only valuable if someone knows it exists. Knowledge hidden on a hard drive helps no one. A beautifully researched family tree means little if your children don't know where to find it. Preservation isn't just about saving files, it's about making those files understandable. Now, next, we're going to talk about the 7 most important things every genealogist should prepare. Simple steps that can make the difference between your life's work being preserved or being lost forever. Some of these may surprise you, and none of them require you to be a technology expert. So, we talked about a question that many genealogists would rather not think about. What happens to our research if we're suddenly unable to continue it? The good news is this: you don't have to organize everything overnight. You don't have to have the perfect filing system. And you certainly don't have to finish every branch of your family tree before you can protect your work. You simply need to make it easier for someone else to pick up where you left off. So let's talk about 7 things every genealogist should consider. These aren't difficult. In fact, most of them can be started this week. This may sound obvious, but it's one of the most overlooked steps. Your family can't preserve something they don't know exists. I've met researchers whose children had no idea they had spent decades studying the family history. The boxes were in a spare bedroom. The files were tucked away on a computer. The online subscriptions renewed every year. but no one knew how important any of it was. Don't assume your family understands. Tell them, show them. Explain why you've spent years doing this work. Share your excitement when you discover something new. When people understand the value of your research, they're much more likely to protect it. Imagine walking into a library where every book has been removed from the shelves and stacked in random piles. The information is still there, but finding anything is almost impossible. That's what genealogy feels like to someone who inherits a lifetime of research without instructions. One of the greatest gifts you can leave is a simple guide. It doesn't have to be complicated. Explain where your files are stored, which computer you use, what genealogy software you use, which online family trees are current, where your photographs are kept, where your paper files are located, who you've already contacted, what projects are still unfinished. Think of it as writing directions for the next researcher. Today's genealogy doesn't live in one place. It's scattered across computers, cloud storage, external hard drives, flash drives, online subscriptions, email accounts, and perhaps even your phone. Ask yourself, if someone sat down at your desk tomorrow, could they find everything? Or would they spend weeks searching? This doesn't mean you need to rename every file. It simply means making sure someone knows where to look. This may be the single biggest obstacle families face. Your Ancestry account, Family Search, MyHeritage, Find My Past, Dropbox, Google Drive, email, genealogy software, cloud storage. If no one can access those accounts, your research may effectively disappear. I'm not suggesting you leave passwords on a sticky note beside your computer. Instead, consider using a secure password manager or maintaining a document that a trusted family member can access if necessary. Think about it this way. The records may still exist, but if no one has the key, the door stays locked. Every genealogist has them, that ancestor who seems to appear out of nowhere, the missing marriage record, the mystery parent, the family story you've never been able to prove. You've probably spent years thinking about those problems. Future researchers shouldn't have to start over. Leave notes explaining what you've already searched, what sources you've ruled out, what theories you've tested, and perhaps most importantly, what you still hope someone will discover someday. Sometimes all another researcher needs is one clue to continue the journey. This one is especially close to my heart. Documents tell us what happened. Stories tell us why it mattered. Don't just leave a birth certificate. Explain who that person was. Don't simply label a photograph. Tell the story behind it. Why was that picture taken? Who took it? What was happening that day? What made that moment important? Future generations won't remember every census record, but they'll remember the story about their great-grandfather walking 5 miles to school, or the grandmother who baked bread every Saturday morning, or the family reunion where everyone gathered under the old oak tree. Stories create emotional connections. That's what keeps family history alive. This may be the most important step of all. Who will become the next caretaker of your research? It may not be the person you expect. Sometimes it's a child, sometimes a niece, sometimes a cousin, sometimes a grandchild who's just beginning to ask questions. Sometimes it's another genealogist in the family. Talk with them. Show them what you've created. Invite them into your research before they have to inherit it. Passing the torch is much easier than expecting someone to figure everything out alone. You knew we were going to talk about artificial intelligence eventually. The truth is, AI isn't the solution, but it can become an incredible assistant. Imagine recording your memories. AI can transcribe the conversation in minutes. It can organize topics, summarize interviews, create timelines, help draft biographies, suggest questions you hadn't considered asking, even help identify people and places in old photographs. AI makes preservation easier than ever before. But remember, AI can't preserve information that was never recorded. It can organize, it can summarize, it can assist, but the stories still have to come from you. As I've worked with families over the years, I've come to realize something. Most genealogists believe they're researching the past, but I think we're doing something much bigger than that. We're building bridges, bridges between generations, between grandparents and grandchildren, between people who will never meet. Every document we save, every photograph we identify, every story we write, every interview we record becomes part of a legacy that stretches far beyond our own lifetime. That's really what the time capsule method is all about. It's not simply organizing genealogy, it's making sure your family history remains understandable, accessible, and meaningful for the people who come after you. Because one day, every one of us becomes the ancestor. The question is, what will we leave behind? Before our next episode, I'd like you to do one thing. Choose just one item from today's discussion. Only one. Maybe it's writing down your passwords in a secure place. Maybe it's creating a simple roadmap of where your research is stored. Maybe it's labeling 10 old photographs. Maybe it's telling your children where you've kept your genealogy files. Maybe it's writing the story behind your favorite family photograph. Don't wait until everything is perfect. Progress is far more important than perfection. Every small step makes it more likely that your years of research will continue helping future generations. If today's episode encouraged you to think differently about your genealogy, I'd love to hear from you. What's one step you've taken or plan to take to ensure your family history won't be lost? You can share your thoughts through my website or connect with me on social media. And if you found this episode helpful, please consider subscribing to Time Capsule, Modern Genealogy, Legacy, and AI, leaving a review, and sharing it with a fellow genealogist. Every share helps reach someone who may be preserving a lifetime of family history. You can also visit ancestryseeking.com for genealogy articles, educational resources, online courses, and tools designed to help you preserve not just your research, but your legacy. Until next time, remember this: your ancestors trusted time to carry their stories to you. Now it's your turn to make sure your stories and the work you've done to preserve theirs continue on for generations yet to come. I'm Barbara Beauregard. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode of Time Capsule, Modern Genealogy, Legacy, and AI. If today's episode has you thinking about your own genealogy legacy, I've created a genealogy freebie guides page on my website under the Learn tab. Here you will find lots of useful handouts and checklists to help you begin organizing and protecting your family history. You can download any of them at ancestryseeking.com.